I think faith is humans trying to explain their meaning or existence or purpose, or just general existence through art in all different kinds of forms. And that is the main idea for me. There's a lot of looking for comfort, I think, when it comes to struggles, contemplating about death, all that, which is such a big part of just generally how life works, not only for humans but for like everything in the universe. It's always about like being born, living your life, dying. Like that's how the entire system is kind of like, not to say created, but how it works. And I feel like it's always been, for humans, as long as we have even been evolved to that level of thinking, I think it's been like, it's naturally making us ask all these questions, and faith is kind of just a thing that sums it all up. Because we are also part of nature, this is why we feel this like feeling of greatness when we're in it, because we actually belong here. But in this time and age, we're kind of like, because we live in cities mainly, and even people who live in the countryside, they still kind of like, they have their own place, their own garden. They don't really think that much about belonging in the nature. But if you kind of like, once you go in there and you're in this like silence, once you, because like me as well, I always have this music blasting in my ears, and it's like, in a way, it's like a form of escapism from what's going on in the world. So if you come to nature, come to like parks or go walk in the forest, whatever, it's just like a way for you to feel connected again. And I think a lot more people should be doing it than they are doing. Of course, it depends where you live, but in the Western world, there's a lot of hustle and a lot of anxiety around everything, a lot of like making it, and always like structure is good, but I feel like people are going way beyond having a structured life. They just do so much all the time, and it's easy to kind of like forget just taking time for yourself and being in peace. And I feel like going to nature is one thing that brings it back to them. It's actually very interesting because I'm from Estonia. That's where I was born, that's where I've been raised, that's where I grew up. That's how I still identify as an Estonian, and probably going back soon as well. And the reason I say it's interesting is because Estonia is one of the most atheistic countries in the world. Me, however, I was born in like I always say semi-Christian family, because my mother is a Baptist, and my father's side of the family isn't really Christian. So me and my siblings, we got like, I would say like semi-Christian, not teaching, but like the way our family was raised and kept together. And so yeah, it was always somewhat a part of my life as well. Going to Sunday school as a kid, me and all my siblings, we would go. But also we were given a lot of like freedom, so most of us just like grew out of it. Our family wasn't really that much different from everybody else's. And yeah, because I think because I come from a small town on an island, and there's a lot of nature around me. I feel like for me, I have always felt some sort of spiritual connection in nature rather than like in a church. So even to this day, I'm always like, my church is in nature, which in a way is like a funny way of saying it, but also very true. And yeah, I feel like once I started like maturing, and when I was like 15, 16, 17, I started asking a lot of questions, because the idea of believing in a God always made sense to me, but a lot of the things that were presented to me, not necessarily as like the church that I was in or my parents or anything, but just generally like the way society presents religion just seemed off to me, and I didn't connect with it, so I found kind of like my own way. And for a moment I thought that I had to reject all of that to believe in what I believe, or to make things make sense for myself. But then I realized that I don't really have to, because once I started asking questions, I kind of like found this completely new angle, which we could potentially call progressive Christianity, which is something that I identify as now, is progressive Christian, because it's a very broad way of talking about faith. It doesn't limit you, and I feel like the entire meaning or purpose of progressive Christianity is going against the strict and defined black and white kind of believing. So that's why I identify with that, which in a way is ironic because I'm against labels and then I found another label to label myself with, but it's just the closest thing that could kind of identify or sum up what I believe. A big part of me becoming a Christian or finding deeper faith was rejecting the religious aspect of it. So I would say my faith comes from the place of rejecting organized religion, and the emphasis I would put on the organized parts, because I feel like religion is such a broad term, and often there's not a better way to explain myself. A lot of people ask you, oh, how are you religious? I'm not going to go into this entire conversation about like, no, I'm not religious, but I'm doing this and this and that. Oftentimes I just say yes, because that's the easiest way to like give a fast reply. And when people ask that, they mostly just mean, no, do you believe in God? So that's fine with me. But I do reject like religion as in this set of rules, black and white, do that, don't do that. Especially this like very binary, like spiritual versus secular, worldly versus godly. I think none of that makes sense, and once you start limiting something as big, as ungraspable as faith is, or an idea of a God is, if you start limiting it with like such a organized box that you put God in, it kind of like just kills the entire thing for me and goes against anything that I think faith should be about. What I think faith has always been about to people from, I don't know, thousands of years ago. The answer that I have reached, or the conclusion that I have reached, is that there's no purpose really. But I think it's a very human thing to be looking for a purpose in everything around you. I personally don't think that's necessary nor true. But of course, to each their own, and I think whatever comforts people, if it's about the purpose part, then they should follow that and believe that, as long as they're not doing any harm to anyone around them. I think in a way I still am seeking, but I have stopped seeking for purpose and meaning in every little thing. I think a lot of stuff just happens to us so we can control it, and it's not destined to us. It's not like we were supposed to go through bad and evil things so that it will kind of like make us better people. I don't think that's true. I think things just happen to us and we can choose to learn from it. But I think I personally have found meaning and purpose in not having any meaning and purpose. Like the randomness of it all, I think, is what makes it more meaningful. The fact that things just happen and we can just like fail, and we can have our good times and bad times, and sometimes it all just doesn't make any sense. And I don't think it's supposed to. I think that's the beautiful part of it. When I practice my spirituality, or when I get connected to the spirituality, I normally just feel peace, and I usually feel a very strong sense of gratitude. I think that is the main thing for me. Yeah, a lot of peace, a lot of gratitude, and through that kind of like making peace with yourself and kind of like living through everything that you have been keeping inside you. So in a way it's like a form of therapy. That's how I would describe it. Because even when it comes to praying, there's so many different ways of doing it, and sometimes it can be like literally talking to a therapist, but sometimes it can be just like being in the moment more similar to like meditation. And there's so many different forms of practicing it, and they always just give me these two things: peace and a sense of gratitude. That's how I would describe it. And like I said before, there's something about the randomness of it all just like makes it make sense to me. For a lot of people it doesn't, I know that. A lot of people are like, well, I reject all kind of spirituality because I don't like the like meaningless of it all or the randomness of it all. And I think that's a fair point too, because people are different. Some people really like to have black and white answers served to them. They ask something, they want a reply. And I'm somebody who asks as well. I ask a lot of questions, but I'm sometimes fine with not having the exact answer, and I think that is beautiful. But that probably has a lot to do with like how I am as a person in general. I think art is supposed to be about asking questions, and the same about any kind of spirituality. It should be more about asking questions than finding the answers, because the best answers make you ask more questions anyway. So I think it's an endless trying to make sense of things, but not expecting really anything to like fall into place necessarily. It's supposed to be something you feel rather than like the very strict black and white answers you get. And sometimes you get them. It's not like you can't get them. Sometimes you get the answers and you're like, because a lot of the answers are inside us and we just know them. When it comes to like, I think we all know what it means to like, what do we want to be good to other people? Yeah, because it feels the right thing to do. So I feel like it's not something you have to ask, just kind of like know that if there is a God, or if there is any kind of meaning or just direction in this universe, it's supposed to be about doing good rather than like doing evil. Doing good to other people, being a good neighbor, to use religious terminology. Be a good neighbor, love your neighbor like you love yourself. I think that is just very basic, and I believe most people follow that. But when it comes to like you said, all aspects of life, of our daily life, and there's like some sort of like an ethical question behind everything we do, I agree. And I definitely am curious about how I could be more, do the most ethical things in daily life. However, I think that it's also easy to kind of like fall into that trap of like always beating yourself up for not being good enough, not doing well enough, and that's dangerous too. I think sometimes we have to make peace with the fact that we are humans and we mess up, and we do, I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but I do a lot of unethical things on a daily basis. I walk past a lot of people who I could help on the streets, all that, and it's not like it makes me feel good, but sometimes you just do it because you're trying to like carry on with your life, and kind of like, yeah, there's a lot that we could do, a lot that I could do better, and I know that and I'm aware of that, but I also think that that shouldn't distract you from pursuing your spiritual connection, which is what I keep doing, and which is something that I want people to keep doing, because I feel like historically a lot of people have been made to feel discouraged from looking for spiritual connection when they have done wrong. My own great grandmother, who I've never had the privilege of seeing or knowing, because she died before I was born, but because she basically felt like she wasn't ethical enough or moral enough, which is really ironic because she was a really good person, but because she didn't follow the rules that were the norms in the society back in the day, she got, not to go into details, but she felt her entire life that she didn't feel good enough or moral enough or holy enough to even step inside a church. And I think it's such a sad way of thinking and living, and a lot of people felt that way and lived that way, and it's something that I really hope in this time and age, in the 21st century, nobody has to feel. That everybody should have the right to have faith. Nobody should like, if you already have faith and you already have faith, you shouldn't feel like you can't practice it because the people around you are making you feel like you can't, because you're not being ethical enough. So I think the ethical question is very important, but it also can't become the most important thing, because nobody is 100% ethical, actually. And people who seem and present themselves as the most ethical, I am very suspicious of them. I don't think they can actually be. I think a lot of people who present, I've heard enough stories, I think we all have heard all these stories about people who are, for example, are very active in charity, and then something comes out, something is revealed about their personal life, and you're like, wow, there's a lot of that. So I think oftentimes the best people are the most regular people who just live their lives and trying to do the best with what they have. Of course, it's always a gray area. You can easily go to the direction where you're like, oh, I'm not. A lot of people can feel like they can do anything and say anything, because it's a very Protestant belief as well, where it's like, well, as long as I'm loved by God, it's fine. And then they do a lot of harm. And I don't think that is right as well. But also, yeah, like I said, people who feel like people who constantly beat themselves up for not being good enough. It's like these are the two extremes, and for some reason humans always want to follow the extremes. I think there's some sort of psychology behind it, which I haven't yet figured out the reason of, but yeah, for some reason there's a lot of, instead of finding the neutral way, they just like decide to go to the extremes, which I think is because the neutral and the grey is often scary. People are afraid of not having every answer. People are afraid of like maybe having to ask more than be answered. So it's easier to like start following an ideology that is like very strict and very black and white, because then it gives you structure, it gives you order, and it's safer. And it's not, like I said, not only with religion. I see that with a lot of other practices of spirituality as well. And this extremism often leads to like the rejection of, for example, science, and being 100% pro-science is a really big part of my spirituality. So I see it as very sad when people who come from a nice place with good intentions end up on this very extreme, actually dangerous path, where they're like just putting their own and the lives of other people at risk because of their beliefs. Because it's something that I've heard from my mother. It's not like a personal thing I witnessed, so I feel like it couldn't have influenced me directly. But it's something that I've thought about a lot, actually. That is true. I have thought about it a lot, and yeah, I just think it's sad. I think it's definitely something that I remind myself when I need to come to my conclusions about what it means to be spiritual. I remember that, yeah. And I wish I could go back and like tell her, it's chill, it's fine. Like if you were born even like a few decades later, that would have never been a problem. And even back in that day, it wasn't really rare for anyone to like okay, so basically she got I feel like I need to explain it so that it makes more sense, but basically she got kids, got pregnant outside of her marriage, and that was enough for her to feel like she's not worthy and she's sinful for the rest of her life, and she's not worthy of stepping inside a church, or like she would keep her faith to herself and be very private about it. But maybe, now that I think about it, maybe it worked in her favor, because her faith was very private in that case, and she didn't, she kind of like locked herself out of this community-based practicing of faith. But I'm pretty sure she had her own spirituality, and maybe eventually that was even better, because she wasn't maybe she knew just how toxic it would be and how it would not do her good mentally, spiritually. So maybe in a way she was protecting herself from being hurt more. And maybe, now that I think about it, maybe in a way it helps her spirituality. Maybe it actually made her faith stronger and her... Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it. I can be, for example, a queer person and go to a church. A lot of people don't have that privilege. A lot of people are kicked out of their families and homes, and that still happens, and that's shocking to me because especially when I hear the stories here in the UK, as somebody who's from Eastern Europe, I often see this area here as like way more progressive, and then I hear all these stories about people and their experiences with their families and their churches, and I'm like, whoa, that's actually crazy because I don't have that. I have had a very good experience, and that reminds me of I would say of my privilege. And now coming back to when we talked about faith before, I said peace, I said gratitude, but I also feel like a big part of it is also acknowledging your privilege. So when we say things like, and it's very common in the Christian world, for example, actually in any kind of spiritual world, and even atheists say that, is that oh, I'm so thankful, I'm so blessed to have been born in this situation, or I'm so thankful that I was born in this situation. It's funny we say that because I don't think anyone would actually want to believe in a God that places different souls into different places. Like, I was given this family and then somebody else was given another family, and I was given this environment and somebody else was made to starve in Africa. Like, it makes no sense if you think about it from a spiritual level. Like, which God would we then believe in? Like, what kind of a God would even do that? We keep saying it always like, oh, I'm so blessed, I'm so thankful. But when I say these things, what I think a lot of people mean when they say this is that through saying that you acknowledge your privilege, and that should give you the motivation to go and be there for people who are not as fortunate in their lives and in their situations. So yeah, when I say that, for example, when I'm in prayer and I'm like thankful about my life and what's going on in my life, it's not like, but thank you for giving me this life because I have been this good person, and my friend who's in this horrible situation, like obviously she or he wasn't as good of a person. Like, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, when I say thank you, it's basically me acknowledging that I'm not taking it for granted, and I can do maybe something good with it because I'm in a better position than other people. And if I'm in a better position, I can help people who are not in as good of a position. So the way of course it's different. I feel like in UK, generally in Europe, we understand it better. But if you look at America, and don't even get me started, I feel like because America is there's a lot of like preaching of prosperity gospel, and their religion is often very linked to their like capitalist dream of earning more, getting more, and so oftentimes their belief is also, the way they see it, their wealth is like a visual proof of their good spiritual stance in the eyes of God. I think it's very different in societies, and I feel like it's a lot worse in America. So here we kind of like are more aware about our luck and our privilege. I feel like this entire like Kate Bowler, who I love, who is an amazing writer, how she wrote the #blessed phenomenon is like very American, because America kind of like leads the entire Western culture. And yeah, I feel like we here in Europe are thankfully a lot more self-aware, also aware of the rest of the world, and of course not everyone, but I feel like the majority of people that I'm surrounded with are just more aware and more, in a way, just like do not take themselves as seriously. It sounds horrible, but that's what it is. Whereas if you talk to a lot of like people, for example in the Americas, they are very like, and in the USA to be precise, they do seem to think that they live in the best place of the world, and that is also very reflective of their faith. And I don't want to like generalize, because when I talk about the USA, I'm talking about a very, very big population of the earth. My spiritual practices oftentimes differ and it's very dependent on my mood or where I'm in life or what I need in that specific moment to connect spiritually. But my most common ones are, of course, I wish I could say it's like proper prayer, because that would be the most religiously correct way of talking about it. And sometimes it is just me literally sitting down. Usually involves lighting candles or just like making the room cozier for myself. If I'm indoors, making the room cozier for myself, trying to shut out as much noise as I can. Oftentimes it's hard because, especially if you live with other people, it's difficult to achieve that. Sometimes you have to kind of like prepare yourself for it, so you can listen to like a special kind of music that helps you channel this mood that you need for your spiritual practice. And yeah, normally I like to have like a cup of tea, so that is also like helpful. I feel like that's almost like a crucial part of my prayer and my spiritual practice, having a nice cup of tea. Yeah, lighting candles, being in darkness, so you can kind of like just concentrate on that moment. And usually I just like go with the flow, so when I feel the need to rant to God, I can do that. When I feel the need to just sit and not think anything, I can do that. But my favorite kind of spiritual practice really is, especially back home in Estonia, when I can go to my garden or when I'm in nature. I still like to have my cup of tea, but my absolute favorite time to do it is at night, when you see the starry sky, because where I'm from, the island, there's not a lot of light pollution and the starry sky is really clear. And I don't think there's any greater way of connecting with your spirituality than just like literally looking at the universe. So that is my ideal way of praying or practicing my spirituality, whatever we call it. Just sitting in my garden or anywhere, having a nice cup of tea, looking at the star sky, and it just fills me with this. It's weird to describe, but it just makes everything make sense without me being able to explain what exactly I mean. You just sit there, and it doesn't happen immediately, but usually after you've done it for a while, or after you finish, you just feel like there's like vibrations going through your body, and it feels very powerful, which is why I consider it necessary, because it actually helps me with my general well-being and mental health. So oftentimes people see spiritual practices as like contradictory or going against mental health issues, and of course they can be toxic sometimes depending on what the person is told or what they believe. But from my experience, it actually 100% helps me, and it's been very often, because obviously we're living in this very, very fast world. I'm not gonna lie, I don't find a lot of time for practicing my spirituality, and most of the time I just live like everybody else and just like do my daily tasks and just like go to bed and wake up the next day, do it all again. But every time I do it, I just feel very, very filled with motivation and energy and good thoughts for the entire next day. That's why I like to keep doing that as much as I can. And ideally, yeah, it's harder to do in cities, but when I'm back home, I always am more spiritual, because it's just everywhere around me. Like if I was living here, if my house was here, no other people would be around, that would be just me, just this place, I would probably be a lot more spiritual than I am. But yeah, my spiritual practice also makes me feel emotional. Very often it literally makes me cry. It's really hard to explain, but yeah, sometimes it's just like I'm in the moment and just like happy crying. It's not like sad crying. I guess unless you have something really sad that you feel about yourself or something you've done, maybe then it would be like sad tears. For me, it's usually like just tears of gratitude and tears of belonging. And yeah, I think it fills me. That is a good word to use. I think it fills me with this sense of belonging, which is something that everybody is yearning for, that we're looking for in other people, in our work, in our studies, everything we do. We want to belong somewhere. We want to be a part of something. That's a very human thing as well, to feel belonging. And my spirituality definitely helps me achieve some kind of feeling of belonging. It's interesting, I've never had like a loyal spiritual community that I have surrounded myself with. My mom is Christian, and we often talk about these things, so I feel like often I have really deep, really good conversations with my mom. Even if we disagree, we talk, we explain our perspectives, our interpretations, and there's a lot of mutual kind of like helping each other through our differences and our similarities. And luckily there's a lot more that we agree on than that we disagree on. So in my family I have my mom for that, but I don't really have. I have attended a few churches even here that I know are like progressive and intellectual and all that, and I've liked them and I've liked the people that I've met, but I think it's because I've never been a proper churchgoer. I don't consider it necessary for my faith. So when I say belonging, I feel like spiritual belonging, like belonging, feeling connected to everything around me, like I'm part of it, because we are part of it, even if we try to like cut ourselves off it and feel more special, more unique. We are all part of this, and this is why everything can affect us, from viruses and everything else, because we are so much part of it, like every other species. So yeah, that's what I mean by belonging. I don't consider it necessary for myself. I know a lot of people do, so I'm trying to remind myself that it's individual for everybody and different for each individual. And yeah, for me it's not necessary. In fact, I feel the most spiritually connected when I'm in complete solitude. That is what I need the most. I think having too many people around me just overwhelm me and overwhelm my spirituality. And it doesn't mean that I can't feel the sense of community in other places. I very much can when I'm around people that I like and love. And it doesn't have to be a mutual spiritual practice, but it still feels that way. Even if you're with your friends and you're having like a nice glass of wine and you're just talking, and sometimes I have this like moment, very, very short moment, I just realized that I kind of like want to capture this moment, and like, this is the community element, this is the church. Like, I think that's how a church should be like. Just like being around people you connect with, even if you don't agree on everything, but just being together, finding the mutual areas, and kind of just like vibing. And yeah, this community feel can come in the most unexpected of places and most unexpected times. I guess it's easier if it's like somebody from your family, because you're literally genetically and connected to them. If it's somebody else, I think it's just something you have to feel. Sometimes you meet somebody who never met them before, and you just feel this mutual understanding, and you feel like there's no filter and you can talk about everything. I think that's how connection feels. There's also people that are really hard to connect with, and I think that's okay too. Not everybody's supposed to be connecting all the time. But yeah, I think it's very much just hard to explain, easy to feel. I think we've all felt that with like friends or anyone that we don't know that well before. And sometimes people surprise us and later we find out it wasn't that true and that good. Sometimes we get disappointed by the way people expose themselves later. But usually I think if you feel that strong sense of connection and like both of you are completely transparent, then that's usually right. I think it's one of the things that we have in our, what's the word, intuition. Yeah, it's something that we just like sense. probably some sort of a survival skill, to be fair. But I think it's just me being cautious. Once I know somebody is like atheist, it's easier for me to trust them in a way. Very often you meet somebody that identifies as religious, whether it's Christian, Muslim, anything, and I have this subconscious fear that they might not actually be as nice as they present themselves as. And I know it's toxic mentality, I shouldn't think that about people. But when I talk to people who are like atheists, they normally just tend to be more chill. And just generally people who are like atheist, agnostic, who don't like use any very like strong labels. I think it just lays a great foundation for an honest conversation. Whereas with religious people, and don't get me wrong, I've met so many religious people that are absolutely wonderful and nice, and you have really good conversations with. But yeah, I'm not always happy when I find that somebody is like joined a church, because my first instinct is like, oh, I hope this church actually is a good experience for them. So many people have horrible experiences. I've never had one because I've never been in a proper church. I've attended church a few times, but I'm not like being inside a church, invested in that community. And so when I hear somebody I know that was never exposed to Christianity before join a church, I'm a bit like, oh my god, I hope it works out for them. I hope they don't get traumatized from something. I hope they're not like taught something or indoctrinated with something that's toxic and it's going to affect them later. For some reason I have this fear always, which you don't normally get with like people who identify as not religious or anything like that. I would love for people to have a good spiritual experience, and if a church can provide them with that, it's amazing. But you never know, because I've heard so many horrible stories that I just can't comprehend really. So it's like when somebody has joined the church, I'm just like, oh, I hope they don't start following this and that belief that a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think it's gotten a lot better now. I think it's just that it's the hateful people that are the loudest. A lot of good people just stay quiet, or the same with stupidity. Stupidity is just really loud, and smart people just like can't be bothered to jump into the conversation. So that's why it might seem often like, oh my god, everybody's so stupid, or everybody's thinking that way, everybody's so hateful. I think once you start actually hearing people's stories, I don't know, even attending communities, spiritual communities, I really hope like we all get like disproven. It's not as drastic as it seems. It's so nice here, okay. Even this area here.
Esme, don't go too close, and can you just make sure Oakley's bike doesn't go too close to the edge? You down? Do not go in the water. Okay.
I won't get you.
My mum's not really religious, and growing up, I remember every Sunday we would go to my uncle's church with my gran, but we kind of went because her mum expected her to, and then that was kind of it. So that died down when my gran died. Yeah, so then I never really went to church. We've been to church a few times, haven't we, over the road. We've got the church opposite our house. But we don't always go every week, but then don't feel like we need to go every week either. Sometimes I just feel like I just want to go. Just no specific reason. I just want to go for like that connection. But I can't really explain it. It's not really a connection with people that are there either. It's just a connection. Like just a spiritual connection. But then I don't feel like I need to go to church to have that spiritual connection either. I do feel like you can have that anywhere, as long as you're comfortable where you are and you're happy with where you are. So I've kind of been on a journey over the last few years, because even though I've been happy, there's been something there that just wasn't. I just wasn't. I could never really explain it. I've always felt really close to my gran, and actually since my gran died, I felt even closer to her after she died. I always felt like she was there with me, just all the time, and if ever I asked her for something, I would always get it. And then a train, yeah, and that's kind of as far as it went really. And then I just started reading a few more things and just started learning that actually there's more there. There's a lot more energy there that we don't see. So just because we don't see something doesn't mean that it's not there and that it's not real. And yeah, just like I've always had things happen in my life that can't be explained, and they just happen. And a lot of the time it's when I've asked for it but then didn't expect it. And then like I went shopping for a coat and I saw this coat that I really liked, but I didn't have the money for it, but I really liked it. And then I turned around and there was £60 on the floor that was just there on the floor, and the coat was £60. So then I was able to buy that coat because it was given to me. It's just little things. And then there's been things that have happened in the house as well. So like we've left the bath running upstairs, and then I think, oh no, I need to go and turn the bath off, and it's already been turned off. And then just loads of different things. And then just trying to listen a bit more into that energy and the intuition, because if I forget to do something, if I kind of have a little conversation with myself, I'm then reminded of what it was that I was supposed to be doing. Or we can't kill anybody else. Yeah, or I'll be thinking about something and then I'll go out and I'll meet someone who's talking about that thing that I was thinking about.
It's way too easy to break.
And it's just all the little connections that just kind of come out of it, and that's not accidental, and it's not something that you can see either, because half the time you're not even physically aware of the stuff that's going on around you. And it's just kind of more stuff that happens, the more you kind of think, wait a minute, there's something else here that's kind of helping these things to happen. If ever there was something I wanted, or if I was upset about something, then I would ask her and it would always happen. I never asked her all the time, because I kind of had it in my head that if I kept asking her for too many things, then she would stop, because I didn't want to come across as ungrateful or expecting too much. So I never really asked for a lot. And then recently I've kind of,
I'm just going to put Puppy inside.
so over the last year I kind of felt, I was reading some things, it's like, well, you can never ask for too much, because they're there for you and they want you to do as well and be as happy as you can be, so they will do anything they can to help you, so you can ask them for as much as you want. So I started asking for more, and then that's kind of brought me on to like meditation and things like that, and listen to a lot of affirmations, and I don't know, I just seem to be led into more different things now. And then the more I've done it, the happier I felt, and I just feel a lot calmer. And Jay said he's noticed a difference as well, because I used to be so anxious about everything and worried about everything all the time, and it was always well, if I do this, what if this happens, or what if that happens, and all the time. And then now it doesn't really matter, because I kind of feel like I'm being looked after, so it takes away a lot of that, because I know there's something there that's helping me and trying to kind of steer me in the right direction. I just have to listen to that, and the more I listen to that, then the happier I'll be, because everything kind of falls into place and everything I want is there for me, but only if I choose to accept it. So yeah, so kind of on that journey. But then actually recently, which is really bizarre, so I felt that my gran's present isn't around anymore, and it made me feel a bit sad. And I was like, oh, I feel like she's left me. I don't understand why. And then I had like this feeling, like it's like a voice, but not a voice. It's just like a feeling that I get, and I felt like it was from my gran, and she was saying that she's done everything for me over the last few years that I've asked her for, and I'm now on the right track. I'm now on the right path. This is where I'm meant to be, and I'm in a really good place right now. So my gran is happy with where I am, and she was saying that my mum really needs her right now, because she needs to be there for my mum, because my mum's really struggling. And then my mum phoned me up and said that she had a dream, and my gran visited her in a dream, and said that she needs to kind of make amends with her life, and she's got about 3 years to just kind of make peace with everything. And I just thought that was, like, after those feelings that I've been having, and then she phones me and we have this conversation. It's just really bizarre. So I'm not sad anymore, because I know that my gran's not with me, because my mum needs her more than I need her right now. Yeah, so I feel like it's an energy, and I feel like it's related to my gran. So it's just like, for me, it's only my gran, because I knew her in the physical world, but I suppose she could go and visit anyone, but you don't have to necessarily know her. So I kind of put a name to her and a picture, because I just have that same energy as I did when I feel the same way as when she was alive. So because I feel the same way towards this energy as the same as when my gran was alive, I kind of put the two together. But yeah, and then I also feel like there's someone else, like another energy that's trying to connect with me at the moment, a different one. But I've not let that in yet, because it's not familiar to me. So I'm hoping, like through meditation, that I can kind of let that in a bit more. But yeah, and yeah, I've always felt like presence is in the house as well. And then it's real bizarre, because it's not something I've ever really spoke to anyone else. And then my friend just came in one day and she just said, right, I'm pagan. And she never really talked about it to anyone. It was there, but she didn't know how people would react or what people would say, so she never really spoke about it. And I've never really spoke to her about anything either. And then she started like looking into her pagan beliefs a bit more and kind of opening up a bit more. And then she was just saying, like, every time I come to your house, I always feel there's a presence at the top of the stairs. And every time she walks past the bottom of the stairs, she always has to like double look. And I said, do you know what? I do the exact same thing. So not everyone always talks about it. Sometimes you just kind of feel like you're on your own. And sometimes you think, well, is this really happening? or am I just being a bit weird? But then when someone else talks about it, you think, oh, actually, it's not just me. So I'm not that weird because it isn't just me. And then, so it's getting stronger and stronger, and I feel more comfortable and confident to accept it. And actually, yeah, that is a part of who I am. Your toes. And it's nice because it gives you that hope that everything is okay. Because if you don't have the hope, then the opposite is despair, which kind of brings you down, and then you just end up in a bit of a cycle of depression and anxiety. And actually, I don't want to be there. It doesn't feel good. Whereas when you've got a bit of hope, then you kind of have a bit of happiness there, and you're just more confident and something to look forward to. Things do go wrong, but it's okay, because with every bad thing that goes wrong, there's always 10 other good things that happen, but you don't always see the good things. I try and meditate every morning, if I can.
Everybody's got no shoes on.
It's alright.
But it feels good.
Yeah.
Probably.
But yeah, so sometimes I find it really difficult to switch off all the thoughts that are going around in my head, and I just cannot relax. And I think I was putting too much pressure on myself. So now I thought, right, well, I'll just do 5-10 minutes. And if it goes well, it goes well, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't matter. I can try again later. So I'll just do about 10-15 minutes, and then this morning it happened to be half an hour. So I've used a YouTube video to help me get into it, because I can't get into it by myself. And it's so you count down from 3, 2, 1. So you start off with 3. So you visualise the number 3 in your mind, and you visualise it and say it 3 times in your mind, and then as you've done that, you're taking deep breath, and you just relax your body. So you say, right, I'm going to relax my head, I'm going to relax my forehead, I'm going to relax my eyes, my mouth, my shoulders. You just go down through your whole body until you get to your toes. And as you're saying it, you can feel, for me, I can feel my body go deep, that body part go deep, and I feel like it's gone. So I feel like I can't feel that body part anymore. And if you're having any aches or pains or anything, it's gone. It just doesn't exist. And then the next bit is you say 2, 3 times in your mind, and you visualise it. Is it? Run that way. As you say 2, and you visualise that you're taking in deep breaths, and then you visualise your happy place. So is he trying to get you? The place where you can go and you just feel so happy and content and relaxed. So for me, it's usually on the beach, by the sea, because I just hearing the waves and the water and the birds and just feeling sand, it just makes me instantly just relax. So I always visualise that, and then when you get to 1, you take your deep breaths, say it 3 times, visualise it, and then you're just taking more deep breaths, and you just say to yourself, my body's getting more relaxed, it's getting deeper and deeper.
Where's the leg gone?
Lost it. And then you can count down, so you can count down from whatever number you want to, and you say, every time I get a number lower, my body just gets even more relaxed and feels even more deep. And then by the time you get to 0, so you usually count down from between 10 and 20, and then I just feel so relaxed, and this energy just comes over me, that it's just, I just feel so content in that moment that nothing bothers me, nothing.
No, he's not.
I don't worry about anything. I'm not thinking about anything.
He's not trying to get you anymore.
And it's a really good feeling.
We're chasing him.
And it's like I don't want to come out of that, because it's the best feeling that you're ever going to feel, because everything is just so perfect in that moment and just so good. It makes a massive difference. So then when you come out of it, so today I visualised to what
No, he's not. You were
my
trying to get
intentions,
him. You were
what my
literally
day was going to
chasing
look
him.
like. So I visualised everything about today, everything that I was going to do, how I wanted it to go, and it happened. I did loads this morning. I got loads of paperwork done this morning that I didn't think I'd be able to get done, and also I've been thinking about starting a new business over the last few months. So 6 months ago, someone said to me,
get the soap registered.
someone said to me that I should start, I should become a parent coach.
Oh yeah.
And then it was because it was all new to me, and it was something that I've not done before because I've been a childminder, so I'm used to working with children and parents. And then I was like, oh, I can't do that, I don't know. And then over the last few months I've been thinking more and more about it. And then I was like, right, I'm going to think of a name and open up like a Facebook page and then kind of just start it off that way. But I just can't think of a name. And then I was like, right, today, when I was doing my visualisation, I thought, right, I'm going to make a bit of a plan. So every other time I thought that I'll make a bit of a plan, it's just not happened because I've got distracted or I've avoided it because I don't know. I feel like maybe it's because I don't want the failure and to accept failing before I've even started. So I just keep avoiding it. And then today I visualised that I was writing this plan. And then after I finished my meditation, I got some breakfast, got a drink, and I sat at the table and I wrote down a plan of what I wanted it to look like a bit. And then I did some paperwork, and then I went in the garden a bit, and it was just nice because I felt happier. Even we were running late, and even Esme in the car said, I wondered why you didn't shout at me this morning for being late.
Because it wasn't me that made her late.
So it's just nicer feeling a bit more relaxed about things and just not getting overwhelmed with everything all the time and stressed out over the little list of things that don't actually really matter. So
Want to hear a shaky shake? Sounds like a fish swimming with shower water, doesn't it?
I'd say it's kind of driven me to kind of do home education because it's allowed me to step outside the box, and just because 90% of people send their children to school doesn't mean that I have to send my children to school knowing that it wouldn't be the right place for them. So it gave me the confidence to think, well actually, no, it's not, school wouldn't be the right environment for them. So the education that I can give them would be more specific to their needs, and I can just, if they're not having a great day, then they're not having a great day. There's no pressure there. Wow, you was super fast.
My own feet.
You're going to do it again. I can look on Facebook or like go on into a bookshop, and then I'll just be walking, and the first thing I see is a book. So at the moment I've been looking into Jose Silva. So it was just something that popped up on YouTube, and then I just started looking into it more, and it's about energy and like listening to your intuition and meditating, and it was just saying that a lot of problems and like illnesses and things of your body that's under stress, and a lot of that you can kind of like get rid of by just relaxing and just not stressing so much about things that you have no control over.
Literally,
Apart from like using essential oils and things, it's not really something I've explored, looked into yet.
the sun picks up the water.
It's kind of all new to me.
the sun, and
yeah,
it actually
if
makes it really
someone
hot, which makes water evaporate, turn into
I was
a
talking
gas,
to Jay's
and
auntie,
that would gather up
I was saying
into
to her,
a cloud,
like, some of the things that I'm doing now,
when there's way
if
too
someone
much,
had said to
then
me 15
that
years
when there's
ago,
way too much
why don't you do
evaporation
this or why don't you do that, I'd be like, no,
it turns
no
to
way
rain
would have
and
home educated my
falls.
children,
Like this.
or no way
like
would
right
be
now
doing
it
meditation,
turned to
things
rain
like
and
that,
fell.
and
That's what happened
and then-
when it started.
things just change,
Okay.
and yeah, I feel
really,
like there's positive energy around
Right
it.
now
It
there's
just feels
evaporation
nice.
in the air going into the
So-
exact same cloud that's raining. Yeah.
You are who you are. And I get that because she is who she is. But at the same time, the problem isn't why we're begging, the problem is society.